When I called to ask when the wedding was, she said, "We already got married, Mom. We only invited people who really matter. Just send the beach house keys and stop being so dramatic." I just smiled and hung up. 3 days later, I left a wedding gift at their door that made her husband scream nonstop. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me tell you how we got here, because this story didn't start with that phone call. It started 2 years ago when my daughter Lauren brought home Damon for the first time. I'm Evelyn, 65 years old, and until 3 days ago, I thought I knew my daughter. We used to talk every day. She'd call during her lunch break and we'd chat about everything and nothing, work gossip, the latest Netflix series, her dating disasters. When she met Damon, I was genuinely happy for her. She deserved someone who appreciated her brilliant mind and kind heart. "Mom, he's different," she'd said that first night, practically glowing. "He really gets me." I'd prepared my famous lasagna, the one Lauren had been requesting since she was 12. Damon arrived in an expensive suit, carrying roses and compliments about my home. He was handsome in that polished way that usually made me suspicious. But Lauren was so happy, I pushed my doubts aside. During dinner, he asked thoughtful questions about my nursing career and seemed genuinely interested in my stories. He complimented the lasagna, helped clear the table, and even offered to do dishes. Perfect gentleman behavior that should have been charming, but felt somehow rehearsed. "Your mother raised an amazing daughter," he told me as he hugged me goodbye. "You must be so proud." I was proud. Lauren had a successful marketing career, owned her own condo, and had never needed to rely on anyone for anything. She was independent, strong-willed, and confident, everything I'd raised her to be. But that night, something nagged at me. Maybe it was the way he spoke about Lauren, like she was a prize he'd won, or how he'd mentioned my beautiful beachfront property 3 times during dinner. I owned a small beach house in Cape Cod that had been in my family for 15 years, a place where Lauren and I spent every summer together. "He's very interested in our traditions," I told my sister Marian the next day. "That's sweet, Evelyn. It means he wants to be part of the family." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But something about Damon's perfect smile reminded me of my ex-husband, Harold, Lauren's father. Harold had that same charm, that same way of making you feel special until he decided you were no longer useful to him. Over the next few months, I watched Damon slowly insert himself into every aspect of Lauren's life. He had opinions about her friends, her job, even her relationship with me. The daily phone calls became weekly, then monthly, then barely at all. "Damon thinks I should focus more on our relationship," Lauren explained when I asked why she seemed distant. "He says successful couples prioritize each other." That should have been my first red flag, but I told myself I was being overprotective. Lauren was 28, perfectly capable of making her own decisions. If she was happy, I should be happy for her. But then came the engagement party I wasn't invited to. I found out about Lauren's engagement the same way strangers did, through Facebook. A photo of her left hand wearing a massive diamond ring with the caption, "He asked." I said yes. "Can't wait to start our forever together." 53 likes and counting. Comments from friends and coworkers congratulating her. Not one of them asking where her mother was because most of them had probably assumed I already knew. I stared at that photo for 10 minutes, my coffee growing cold as I tried to process what I was seeing. My daughter was engaged and I'd learned about it from social media. I called her immediately. "Oh my God, Mom. I'm so sorry." Lauren's voice was breathless, excited. It just happened last night and we were so caught up in the moment. Damon surprised me at our favorite restaurant and then we went back to his place and called his parents. And it got so late and I was going to call you this morning, I swear. "Congratulations, sweetheart." I forced warmth into my voice. "Tell me everything." And she did. For 20 minutes, she gushed about the proposal, the ring, how romantic it all was, how Damon's parents had immediately started planning an engagement party at their country club, how they were thinking of a spring wedding. When's the engagement party? I asked. There was a pause. Next Saturday. It's going to be small, just immediate family and a few close friends. Should I plan to drive down Friday night? Another pause. Longer this time. Mom, about that. Damon's family has very specific ideas about these events. His mother is quite traditional, and she's planned everything according to their customs. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. What does that mean, Lauren? It means, well, it's really just for Damon's side of the family and a few of our couple friends. It's not that you're not important. It's just that they have this way of doing things, and Damon thinks it's better if we respect that. Damon thinks. Everything had become about what Damon thinks. I see. I kept my voice carefully neutral. And what do you think? I think Damon knows his family better than I do, and I want to start off on the right foot with them. You understand, right? We'll do something special, just the three of us soon. That was 6 months ago. We never did anything special, just the three of us. In fact, I'd only seen Damon twice since then, and both times he'd been polite, rather than her mother, who'd raised her alone after her father abandoned us when she was 8. The wedding planning happened around me, not with me. Lauren would mention details in passing. They'd found a venue, booked a photographer, chosen flowers. But when I offered to help or asked about specific plans, I was met with vague responses about how Damon's handling most of it, or his mother has connections. 3 months ago, I asked about the date so I could plan time off from my part-time job at the local library. We're thinking early October, Lauren said. Probably the second weekend. Damon's researching venues. That sounds lovely. October in New England is beautiful. Are you thinking of having it at the beach house? I could... Oh no, Mom. Damon wants something more elegant, more sophisticated than a backyard beach wedding. The dismissal stung more than I expected. Lauren had always loved our beach house. As a child, she declared she wanted to get married there someday, barefoot in the sand with fairy lights strung between the dunes. Of course, I said. Whatever makes you happy. But I wasn't invited to the venue tours. I wasn't asked about the guest list. I wasn't included in the dress shopping trips that Lauren posted about on Instagram, her future mother-in-law beaming beside her in every photo. I was becoming a spectator in my own daughter's life. The final blow came exactly 2 weeks ago. Lauren called while I was reorganizing my linen closet, a mundane Tuesday evening task that would be forever marked in my memory as the moment everything changed. Mom, I need to ask you about something and I need you to be cool about it. Nothing good ever followed that phrase, but I took a deep breath and sat down on my bed. What is it, sweetheart? Damon's been doing some research about family dynamics and healthy boundaries in marriage. He thinks it's really important that we establish our independence as a couple from the very beginning. I felt that familiar chill. What kind of independence? Well, he pointed out that I've been relying on you emotionally for most of my life, like calling you when I'm stressed or upset instead of working through things with my partner. He thinks that might create problems in our marriage. Lauren, talking to your mother when you're upset isn't unhealthy. It's normal. But is it? Damon showed me some articles about women who prioritize their mothers over their husbands and how that destroys marriages. I don't want to be that wife, Mom. I closed my eyes, recognizing the manipulation for what it was. Damon was isolating Lauren from her support system, and he was making her believe it was for her own good. What does this mean practically? I asked, though I was afraid of the answer. It means we need to establish some boundaries, less frequent contact, more space for Damon and me to build our own traditions. She hesitated. Damon thinks it would be healthier if we spent the holidays with his family this year, just to break the pattern of dependence. The holidays. We'd spent every Christmas together since Harold left. It was our tradition, our time. Lauren would drive up from Boston on Christmas Eve, and we'd stay in our pajamas until noon, drinking hot chocolate and opening presents like she was still 12 years old. I see. My voice sounded strange, distant. Anything else? Actually, yes. Damon thinks the beach house situation is complicated. What about the beach house? Well, I've always assumed I'd inherit it someday, but Damon pointed out that puts a lot of pressure on our relationship. Like he feels like he can never truly relax there because it's not really ours. It's yours. And if something happened between us and you, we'd lose our vacation spot. I gripped the phone tighter. Are you asking me to sign the house over to you? Not exactly. Damon thinks it would be better if we just found our own place, somewhere that's truly ours. He doesn't want to feel like he's constantly under scrutiny from you when we're supposed to be relaxing. Under scrutiny from me, the woman who'd barely seen him in the past year. Lauren, that house has been in our family for 15 years. It's where you learned to swim, where we've made thousands of memories together. I know, Mom, and I treasure those memories. But I'm starting a new family now with Damon, and he needs to feel like we have our own special places. Places that didn't include me. I ended that conversation with promises to think about everything and respect their need for space. But inside I was already planning. Not revenge, not yet. But I was going to find out exactly who Damon really was, and what he wanted from my daughter. It took me exactly 1 week of careful internet searches and a few phone calls to Lauren's college friends to piece together Damon's pattern. Lauren wasn't his first wealthy, naive girlfriend. There was Chloe, whose family owned a successful restaurant chain. She'd also been isolated from her family before their wedding was called off when her father discovered Damon's gambling debts. And before Chloe, there was Natalie, whose trust fund Damon had tried to access before her brothers intervened. Damon Whitaker wasn't just controlling. He was a predator who specialized in intelligent, successful women with family money. And Lauren, with her successful career and expectation of inheriting valuable beachfront property, was his latest mark. That's when I started planning my wedding gift. The phone call that changed everything came 3 days ago on a Wednesday morning while I was deadheading my roses. Lauren's name appeared on my phone screen, and for a split second, I felt that old surge of joy before remembering how things stood between us now. Hi, Mom. Her voice was different, flat, mechanical. Hello, sweetheart. How are you? I'm calling to let you know that Damon and I got married yesterday. It was a small ceremony, just immediate family and our closest friends. I stopped breathing. Yesterday? But I thought you were having a wedding in October. We decided to do something more intimate. Damon felt like a big wedding was too much pressure, too commercial. We found a beautiful venue in Martha's Vineyard and kept it simple. Simple and secret, apparently. Congratulations, I managed. I'm sure it was beautiful. It was perfect, really. Damon's parents were there, and his sister flew in from California. My friend Jessica was my maid of honor, and Damon's best friend Tyler was his best man. The photographer got some amazing shots. She was listing off details like she was reading from a catalog, not describing the happiest day of her life. But what struck me most was what she wasn't saying. That sounds lovely, Lauren. I'm happy for you. Thanks. Oh, and Mom, Damon and I were wondering if you could send us the keys to the beach house. We're thinking of spending our honeymoon there since we didn't have time to plan a proper trip. There it was. The real reason for the call. Not to share her joy with her mother. Not to include me in this major life milestone. But to ask for the keys to property they'd already decided should be theirs. The keys to the beach house, I repeated slowly. Right. Damon's really excited to see it. I've told him so much about it over the years. He's particularly interested in the renovations you've done and the property value appreciation. Property value appreciation. How romantic. Lauren, when you say you got married yesterday, do you mean you had a ceremony or do you mean you're legally married? Both. We got the license last week and had the ceremony yesterday. Why? Just clarifying. And you didn't think to invite your mother to your wedding. There was a pause. Mom, Please don't make this dramatic. It was Damon's decision to keep it small, and honestly, after everything we talked about regarding boundaries, I thought you'd understand. I understand perfectly. And I did. I understood that my daughter had married a man who had convinced her that excluding her own mother from her wedding was healthy. I understood that Damon had succeeded in his plan to isolate Lauren from the one person who might have protected her from him. So, you'll send the keys. We're hoping to drive up this Friday. Of course, sweetheart. I'll make sure you get them. After I hung up, I sat in my garden for a long time, staring at my roses and thinking about patterns. Damon followed patterns. He isolated women from their families, convinced them to give him access to their assets, and then probably moved on when he'd gotten what he wanted, or when someone started asking too many questions. But Damon had made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed I was just another helpless mother who would quietly accept being cut out of her daughter's life. He'd underestimated what happens when you back a woman into a corner and take away the thing she loves most in the world. I spent the rest of that day making phone calls and sending emails. By evening, I had everything I needed to give Damon exactly what he deserved. Not revenge, really. Justice. The wedding gift I was planning would be far more valuable than anything Lauren might find on her registry. It would be the gift of truth. I've always believed that the best gifts are the ones that keep on giving. So, when I drove to Lauren and Damon's apartment that Friday morning, I made sure my wedding present would provide lasting memories. The package was beautifully wrapped in silver paper with an elegant white bow. Inside was a leather portfolio containing several items that I'd spent the past 72 hours carefully assembling. Damon was going to love learning about his new family connections. I left it outside their door with a note. Congratulations on your marriage. Every new husband should know about his wife's family history. With love, Evelyn. Then I went home and waited. The call came at 2:17 p.m. Lauren's number, but Damon's voice, and he was screaming, "What the hell is wrong with you, you crazy old witch? How dare you send us this garbage?" I set down my teacup gently. "Hello, Damon. I take it you opened your wedding gift. This isn't funny. This is harassment. I'm calling the police." "I'm confused, dear. What exactly would you report? That your mother-in-law gave you a wedding gift containing public records and newspaper articles?" In the background, I could hear Lauren crying. "Damon, calm down. Let me talk to her." "No, this woman is insane. She's trying to ruin our marriage before it even starts." I couldn't help but smile. "Damon, surely you're not upset about me sharing some interesting family history. I thought you'd appreciate knowing about the connections between our families." The truth was, I discovered something absolutely fascinating during my research into Damon's background. It turns out that Damon's grandfather, Gerald Whitaker, had been involved in a rather significant business dealing with my late husband, Harold, back in 1987, a real estate development deal that had gone very, very badly. The documents I'd included in the wedding gift told the complete story. How Gerald Whitaker and Harold had been partners in a shopping center development project. How Whitaker had systematically embezzled funds from their joint accounts. How Harold had lost nearly everything, including his first marriage, because of Whitaker's theft. How Whitaker had fled to Florida with over $2 million, leaving Harold bankrupt and facing lawsuits from investors. But that wasn't the most interesting part. The most interesting part was what I'd discovered in the final newspaper article from 1993. Gerald Whitaker had died in a car accident, but not before confessing on his deathbed to his grandson Damon about the money he'd stolen and hidden in various accounts. Money that Damon had been quietly accessing for years. Money that had funded his lifestyle, his expensive clothes, his ability to woo women like Lauren without holding down a real job. Money that legally belonged to Harold's estate, which, since Harold had died 3 years ago, now belonged to his only heir, Lauren. "Damon," I said calmly into the phone. I also included some contact information for the law firm that handled Harold's estate. They're very interested in speaking with you about those offshore accounts your grandfather mentioned in his confession. Apparently, there's quite a bit of money that rightfully belongs to Lauren. The screaming stopped abruptly. "You're lying," he said. But his voice had changed. The rage was gone, replaced by something that sounded distinctly like panic. "I never lie, dear. I'm a retired nurse. We're trained to be very precise about facts. But don't take my word for it. I'm sure your grandfather's lawyer in Miami will remember you. Mr. Alvarez has been very helpful in tracking down the paper trail." I heard Lauren in the background asking what was happening, what money I was talking about. "Oh, and Damon. The beach house keys are in the portfolio, too. Consider it my wedding gift to both of you. I'm sure you'll find it very relaxing to discuss your family's financial history while enjoying the ocean views." Then I hung up and poured myself another cup of tea. The next few hours were going to be very interesting indeed. The call came again at 6:30 that evening. Lauren's voice was hoarse from crying, and I could hear Damon shouting in the background. "Mom, what did you do?" I was sitting on my porch watching the sunset, feeling more peaceful than I had in months. "I gave you both a wedding gift, sweetheart. Did you read through everything?" "I read enough. Damon says it's all lies, that you're trying to break us up." "What do you think, Lauren?" There was a long pause. I think I need you to explain some things. Damon's grandfather really stole money from Dad?" $2.3 million, according to the bank records. Your father spent years trying to recover it, but Gerald Whitaker disappeared. The stress of it contributed to your father leaving us when you were 8. He couldn't handle the financial ruin or the legal battles. Another pause. "And Damon knew about this money?" I could hear Damon's voice getting closer to the phone, furious and muffled. "The deathbed confession suggests he did. The private investigator I hired found records of Damon accessing several of those accounts over the past 5 years. He's been living off money that legally belonged to your father's estate. That's impossible. Damon has a consulting business. He specializes in investment strategies for high net worth individuals." My heart broke a little. "Lauren, when's the last time you saw Damon actually work? A client meeting, a contract, an invoice, a single call that wasn't for show?" Silence. In the background, Damon demanded she hang up. "The law firm wants to meet with you, sweetheart. As Harold's heir, you have a legal claim to that money plus interest. They estimate it's worth nearly $4 million now." $4 million? Her voice was a whisper. "Damon married you 3 days after I hired the private investigator. Coincidental timing, don't you think?" Now Damon was loud enough to catch every word, accusing me of jealousy, of destroying their happiness, of poisoning Lauren against her husband. "Lauren," I said softly, "if none of this is true, why is Damon so upset? If his grandfather was innocent, wouldn't he want to clear his family's name and see you recover what your father lost?" The line went quiet except for Lauren's breathing. "There's something else," I added gently. "The investigator found 2 previous engagements, Chloe Park in 2019 and Natalie O'Rourke in 2021. Both ended when their families discovered Damon's financial deception. Both women had family money. Both were isolated before the truth came out." "Stop," Lauren whispered. "I have their contact information if you—" I said stop. The line clicked dead. I set the phone down and watched the sky turn indigo. Tomorrow, she would have to choose between the man who had isolated her and the truth that could set her free. But tonight, for the first time in 2 years, Damon Whitaker would sleep knowing his house of lies had begun to collapse. Lauren didn't call back that night or the next day. On Sunday morning, I found her sitting on my front steps, still wearing the same clothes from Friday. Eyes red, hair unwashed, hands clenched around a manila folder. "Tell me everything," she said. I made coffee and we sat at the kitchen table where she'd done homework as a child. "Damon left yesterday," she said, staring into the cup. "Packed 2 suitcases and said he needed time to think. He told me you were poisoning our marriage and that if I believed you, maybe we weren't meant to be." Classic manipulation. An ultimatum that makes the victim responsible for the relationship's failure. Where did he go? I don't know. He turned off his phone. But Mom? She pulled papers from the folder, printed emails between Damon and someone named Gavin Pierce, discussing the Whitaker inheritance and maintaining access to offshore accounts. The dates went back 2 years, long before Damon met Lauren. There's more, she said, voice steadier. I called Chloe Park. She told me everything, how he isolated her, convinced her to add him to her bank accounts, even pushed her to write a will leaving everything to him. Her father hired a detective and Damon vanished overnight. Chloe put me in touch with Natalie. Same pattern. I squeezed her hand. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. You tried to warn me. I chose to ignore you. She swallowed. Chloe said Damon researched us before those accidental meetings. He knew about the beach house, Dad's losses, you being a widow. He turned fate into a script. What are you going to do? I asked. Lauren looked up with the fierce, determined look I hadn't seen since she was 12 and faced down a school bully. I'm going to destroy him, she said, but I need your help. For the first time in 2 years, my daughter asked for my help. And for the first time since all this began, I smiled. Tell me what you need. The plan was simple. Men like Damon always come back once they think the storm has passed. He would apologize, promise change, claim confusion, beg for forgiveness, and try to slide back toward the original goal, her assets. We would be ready. On Monday, Lauren met with the estate attorney I'd contacted, Denise Hart. The news was better than I'd hoped. Not only did Lauren have a claim to the stolen funds, but because Damon had knowingly accessed those accounts, he could face charges for conspiracy and money laundering. The statute of limitations on the original theft has run, Denise explained, but his recent activity resets the clock. He's been receiving and moving stolen property. Denise connected us with a federal investigator specializing in financial fraud, Agent Jenna Luo. Agent Luo had quietly gathered complaints from Chloe's and Natalie's families. She believed Damon was part of a larger pattern. We've been waiting for the right opportunity, Agent Luo said on a conference call. If Lauren is willing to cooperate, we can set up a controlled operation. Lauren agreed without hesitation. By Wednesday, Damon texted, Can we talk? I miss you. I'm ready to come home. Should I respond? Lauren asked. Tell him you miss him too, I said, tasting the bitterness of the sentence as I spoke it. Say you're sorry for doubting him, that I was stirring trouble. Play to his ego, she typed, steady hands, clenched jaw. He replied almost immediately. Home by Friday, fresh start. Thursday morning, Agent Luo briefed us. The apartment would be monitored. Lauren would wear a wire. All she had to do was get him to admit he knew about the stolen money and that he married her to reach her inheritance. What if he doesn't confess? Lauren asked. We proceed with the financial evidence, Agent Luo said. But a recorded admission strengthens the case and helps with charges tied to his prior victims. Friday evening, the texts came like timestamps of a life being reclaimed. 7:43 p.m. He's here. 8:15. Brought flowers and wine. Perfect apologetic husband. 8:52. Talking about a real honeymoon, asking about access to my savings for deposits. 9:31. Got him to admit he knew about the offshore accounts. Agents moving in now. I set down my phone and poured a glass of wine. Damon's predatory career had just ended, but the most satisfying part was still coming. By Monday morning, the local paper ran the headline, Portland man arrested in multi-state financial fraud scheme. They didn't name Lauren, calling her the most recent victim. Damon's mugshot was there. The polished mask stripped away, a common criminal who'd finally tripped over his own arrogance. Lauren came over for lunch. Chinese takeout, a lightness in her shoulders I hadn't seen in ages. Agent Luo called, she said. Damon's been charged with conspiracy, money laundering, fraud across multiple states. Bail at $500,000. Flight risk. Offshore accounts. History of disappearing. We ate in a quiet that felt like healing. Then Lauren asked the hard question. How long did you know? I suspected early, I admitted. But I didn't have proof until 3 months ago. That's when I hired the investigator. She nodded slowly, right when I told you about the boundaries. You didn't warn me because you knew I wouldn't listen. Would you have? She shook her head. No. He had me convinced you were the problem. She toyed with her noodles. How did you think to look into his grandfather? I recognized the Whitaker name in your father's old papers. Once I saw the connection, I knew there was more. She was quiet a long time, then whispered, I was so cruel to you, Mom. You were manipulated by an expert. That's not your fault. I'm smart, educated. How did I fall for it? Because he targeted your strengths. Predators don't seek weakness. They seek value. You have value. She squeezed my hand. How do I make this right? You already did. You're here. 6 weeks later, the trial began. Denise Hart was right about the money, nearly $4 million in recovered assets, plus damages for Lauren. But the criminal case was the true reckoning. Chloe Park flew in from Seattle, composed in a Navy suit. Natalie O'Rourke drove up from New York, nervous but resolute. Together with Lauren, they showed a pattern: isolation, manipulation, calculated charm. Damon's attorney tried to cast him as a misguided man who made poor choices, but Agent Luo's evidence, search histories, surveillance photos of Lauren taken weeks before their accidental meeting, shredded that narrative. The most devastating witness was Gavin Pierce, Damon's accomplice, arrested and testifying for a reduced sentence. Mr. Whitaker contacted me in 2018 about accessing accounts his grandfather established, he said. When I warned him, he said he had a long-term plan to legitimize access. What plan? The prosecutor asked. He said he would marry someone with a legal claim to the money. He showed me articles about Harold Thompson's losses and said Harold's heir would be the rightful owner. Once married, he could claim the offshore funds as marital property. Did he name targets? Yes. 3 candidates based on family wealth and circumstances. One was Lauren Thompson. He said she was ideal, successful but emotionally isolated, close to her mother who owned valuable property, inexperienced in relationships. I saw Lauren flinch, then sit taller, anger sharpening into resolve. Damon shrank in his chair. The jury needed less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts: conspiracy, money laundering, fraud, and criminal marriage fraud with intent to commit grand larceny. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison and ordered full restitution, over $8 million across victims, interest, and damages included. With his accounts frozen and assets seized, Damon would leave prison as broke as those he'd bled dry. Lauren delivered a victim impact statement that hushed the room. You didn't just steal money, she said to Damon. You stole years, my trust in myself, my relationship with my mother. You turned the people who loved me into enemies so you could rob me. But you misjudged your targets. We were never weak. We were deceived, and we fought back together. Damon stared downward, shoulders trembling when she finished. I hope you spend every day of your sentence thinking about the women strong enough to rebuild. Outside the courthouse, we declined interviews. Justice, not spectacle. Chloe hugged Lauren. Thank you for wearing the wire. Without your recording, we might not have gotten the conviction. Natalie squeezed my hand. Thank you for not giving up on her. Agent Luo handed us her card. You helped shut down a predator who would have hurt many more. As the crowd thinned, Lauren turned to me. Mom, I want to ask you something. Anything. She smiled. Finally, the smile I'd missed. Will you help me plan a real wedding someday? With someone who deserves me and who loves you too? Because if he doesn't, he's not worthy of me. Tears stung my eyes. I would be honored. She hesitated at the car door. About the beach house. Damon made me say it wasn't sophisticated enough. Truth is, I've always dreamed of getting married there. Barefoot in the sand, fairy lights between the dunes. It would be perfect, I said, pulling her close. Driving home, I thought about the girl I raised. The strength that had gone quiet under Damon's pressure now roaring back. He'd calculated that isolating Lauren would break her. Instead, it reforged us. He turned a family into his target. We became his reckoning. Some wedding gifts really do keep on giving. And the gift of truth, once unwrapped, never goes back in the box. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.